In this age of technology, every author's not so secret dream is to churn out a piece so incredible that it goes viral. Unfortunately, not all of us manage to do that. For those who manage to do it, sometimes it catches them by surprise, that instant fame, and they don't know what to do with it. It's like they want the piece to go viral, but they want to remain anonymous. Our guest today is one of those. Welcome to Author's Feet, a literary program focusing on authors, their journey, and their work. I am your host, Empress Ciku Mwaniki. Odhiambo Kaumah.
Yes, Ciku.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Ciku.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
How is the instant fame? I know it's a few months old, but how is that taking you?
It's a mix of things. It's been happy, but also it has been heavy on me.
First, before we go on, could you read for us?
I'll do that. Now, the piece has no title, so I'll just go straight into the reading. It is a piece that I dedicated to the infamous loss of the 2022 presidential candidate for the Azimio coalition, that is the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. So it speaks about his loss and the sadness that engulfed a part of his supporters. So it goes, "He's coming back to us after many years away. We released him to you young, vibrant, and eloquent. But you brought him back, an old man from Bondo, a mganga with a heavy tongue, defeated with eyes eternally dripping tears, and empty-handed. We gave him out as the best we could find around here. One who had we known would have kept around here to look after our own affairs. He was a good son. That Amolo you people mocked was a good son. But see who you have brought us back. Well, he is ours, and we'll build him a house by the shore."
Amazing. At what point did you write that? What was your state of mind at that point, without, of course, getting too political? But explain to us your feeling at that particular moment.
Now, it was such a difficult moment for me, but not as a writer, as a voter who happened at that time to be in support of this particular coalition, and also coming from an area where this particular candidate had a lot of support. But this night, as a writer, it's on the 15th of August, 2022, and the results have just been announced, and I'm seated there. I've been out in the evening reading the faces of people around the lake, and I could see in their faces imprints of sadness, kind of hope that was so suddenly lost. So I come back into my own room, and I'm seated there, and it happened this day. It is quite a heavy downpour. And I'm not able to sleep. I'm disturbed by the status around this part of the country. And so I start writing, as I usually do, short pieces that are not particularly addressing anything, but just around that theme. And then before I retire to bed at around 2 a.m., this piece comes, but I write it and leave it not posted. I'll post it the next day in the morning. And then because throughout the night I've been laboring and not writing and not sleeping at all, I go into sleep. And then I wake up and realize that the piece has gone viral. And
I thought you didn't post. Who posted?
I actually did, but it was at a moment when I really didn't think. I had been writing all through the night and posting some posts at 1, at 12, at 11, at 3. So this last one, I was too tired to post, and I just left it with a kind of a restricted view. And so when I wake up to the next day in the morning, I'm still in this kind of agony, and then I post it and go back to sleep again. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. How did you react? What was the moment you realized that you've gone viral, by the way?
Now, I log in back again when I'm up. This is around, I think, 10, 11 in the morning. And it's unusual. I realized that the posts that are done previously during the night are also catching fire. And then I go back to this piece, and I realize that it's a stream of messages and reactions that are coming in. And it's quite unusual. Okay, I've experienced that before, but it was not that enormous. So this particular one takes me by surprise, and I don't know what to do. I now go back to the calls because I realize calls are coming in from my friends, Facebook friends, sometimes phone book friends, who know me, and they're telling me that your post has been shared virally, and they particularly point out the sharing by the Honorable Sabina Chege. Which makes it a bit go countrywide. And when I receive that call, I don't know what to do. I just switch off my phone and and I sit down. In fact, I go next to a river around there, and I'm just down by the river, seeing the world mourn. Actually, at that time, I'm not virtual at that time. I'm living the moment. That's the point. Yeah.
What happened? I want to know the story, because it's like I said in the intro that we sometimes don't know what to do with the instant fame. It's like, you know, 1 minute it's not there and the next it's there.
Yeah.
So there was that moment of shock, and then there is the moment of acceptance that okay, this has gone viral. And then after that, like, do you start like responding to every message? Do you pick, or how do you deal with that? Does it take you away from your usual work? Does it distract you? Do you worry about the number of shares? I want to understand that moment.
No, interestingly, it didn't get to me so much. The virtual kind of acceptance that the post got did not really get into me. What got into me was from a writer's perspective. I'm in this part of the world where people feel so hopeless after casting their votes. And this is not the first time. But it could be the last time, because the candidate in question is advanced in age. And actually the campaign messaging during that time, this was the final kind of an attempt at presidency.
Yeah.
So I was simply mourning. I was not writing for any particular audience outside there. This was me. I was expressing my feelings of, this particular loss. So when this piece actually goes viral, the realization for me is I have spoken the feelings of so many people. And I am not so much engaged online at that moment. I go into the real world where I picked this piece, and I see a mother there. I see a father there. I see a young boy there who is just casting his vote for the very first time. And the hopelessness in their face now takes me back online. I realize there is more to be written. And so I do not concentrate on the piece that have gone viral, but I welcome these people who have come in to consume streams on streams of poetry about this particular loss. And I think the works that came later were, I think, in my own assessment and in the assessment, in the view of the kind of reactions that they received, were much more communicating than the piece that trended itself. Like these other ones,
like
had
well
more
thought,
reactions.
better thought.
Yeah.
Because less emotions.
Yeah. At that time, now I'm aware of myself.
Yeah.
I'm now doing it for the audience.
Yeah.
I'm striking their memories with some of the things that they might have forgotten, but are so relevant in this time. So I'm a bit more composed. I knowing so well that on the other side is an audience that is caught by emotions of the moment. And they would want to get some of these memories so that if they are to cry, they cry in the best way. If they are to weep, they weep in the best way.
Okay.
But if they are to heal, then they have the right kind of pieces for them. And I think I kept on writing. I think the whole day, a whole week, just writing about this.
Brings me to the next question.
Yes.
Who do you write for? Do you write for yourself or do you write for the audience?
Particularly, it's a balance, because the thing that pushes me to write is always inborn. But the setting of my writing is outside there with my audience. But I would say most of the time that I've found pieces being appreciated outside there, it has never been for my audience. It has always been for me. Yes.
Because they are real and they are raw and,
yeah,
you know, it's what you're writing.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. Do you have two opposing questions?
Yes.
One is what gives you that, you know, like, I feel like I have to write right now.
Yeah.
I need to do it this moment.
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
do you have a writing kryptonite night?
No. My writing is a little bit different, and I think sometimes it becomes now the kryptonite you're talking about. I have never particularly planned to go sit somewhere and write. All the things I've ever written and all the things that I appreciate myself as good work in my own assessment, and what also, I don't know whether by chance or just, I don't know, goes outside there and is appreciated, are things that I write out of my own feelings. And sometimes they come in very difficult moments, moments sometimes I may not be aware of, but they come out all the same. Whenever I see something and I say I'm going to write about this, it can take a year to process. And another thing has to happen to remind me that I promised myself to write about such a thing a year or 5 years ago. So I think that also becomes my greatest shortcoming, because I tend to put a lot in the dam site. They have to decompose and have to go with my feeling for them to come out in the manner that I appreciate them and want them to be outside there.
So, like, would you say your kryptonite is your own quest for perfection or the right moment?
I think it's a quest for the right moment, and also basically outside there as a writer, I would call it procrastination.
Yeah.
I do not write when I need to write.
Yeah.
I write when I have to write. Yes. So I cannot plan that I'm going to write about something.
Yeah. So you're not one of those people who plan, like they say, between 3 and 5, I'm going to sit down and write.
Unfortunately, there were times I was inspired enough to try that, but I'm sorry, those pieces have never come out.
They've never come out.
They've never come
because
out.
You need to feel the raw emotion.
Definitely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you reading? What are you reading at the moment?
No, I'm reading two pieces. Two books at the moment, and coincidentally, they are all musical books, basically in a genre known as Benga. I started reading a book last year. It's quite a big book written by Tabu Osusa of the Ketable Music Production that looks at the music history in Kenya from 1946 to 2016.
Is it that one with a lot of Benga?
Yeah.
How is that book? I've been meaning to
It's
get
a great book.
It's a great one,
book.
yeah?
It's a great book, and I think it is better it was written.
Oh, yeah?
And I am glad to live in the times of that book.
And also because you run, you contribute for a website.
Yes.
That deals with, is it like Benga musicians, or is that like you have decided to be writing for Benga for that website? How does that work?
Now, I've always loved music, and basically my connection with music is purely cultural. That's why I went for Benga. So the blog that I run is actually called Tales of Benga and Stories of Music.
Yeah.
So I try to synthesize the message in music and make it a bit more local and worth of consumption with, with an audience that understands sometimes the literature beyond the composition of of the singer or of the Benga artists themselves. So that has been my interest of late, and I've really written a lot of pieces. So the other book actually that I'm reading at this moment is a biography of a Benga maestro known as Osito Kale, yeah, whose launch just happened the other day. Yeah, so I am proud to say that they're African books and they're Kenyan books.
Ah, that is awesome. Sure. It's the kind of answer I like to. Yeah. So are you a reader, or do you read depending on, do you read for research or for pleasure, or how is your reading?
No, I think up to around 2018, I think I was quite a disciplined reader, which is the opposite of my writing. I was quite a disciplined reader, and I was able to read things that I didn't like because I just wanted to know the content, and I was quite inquisitive in my writing, and I read quite a wide array of works, literature, fiction, science, philosophy, and all that. But recently, I don't know what has happened, but I find myself reading only the things that I like.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
You're a teacher.
I'm a teacher.
A science teacher, science subject teacher. Yes. Literature and science. I don't know, maybe it's the way we've been molded to think that if you like sciences, you can't like this, but you've got these two opposing fields, for lack of better words. Yeah. And you excel in both. Genius or luck?
I wouldn't call it either, but I think the world is becoming, unfortunately, unnecessarily specialized. I told you I read a lot of classical books, and we all understand that at one point, we all had this one large body of knowledge called philosophy. And all these disciplines that sprouted out of it, each went with a piece. But whenever you want the whole of something, you go back there. Now, there is a common belief that people who specialize in STEM, or let me say science, technology, are not good communicators or are not good writers. Or when they do, it's considered special. Personally, I've never considered it very special because I believe that whoever writes because they have seen something outside there. And for as long as there is language and there is the interest and the passion and the strong need to write it, it doesn't matter how it comes out. The language can be edited, but we are all writers. We are all storytellers.
Do you write? Do you like write? Do you like one over the other, like science versus vis-a-vis literature?
I like the literature that expresses my science.
Now that is confusing.
Okay. Basically, unlike in science where we could be having this sense of an economy of words, I've tried to turn it around by making science a bit colorful in terms of language. Outside there, I am a teacher of mathematics and chemistry. And I've been able to teach students with various levels of understanding. And sometimes I wonder, if I was the strict scientist who only tells chemistry in the language of chemistry, I doubt if the students I teach would be as comfortable as they are now. Luckily, I've been able to find the language to bring chemistry in stories. And sometimes I set my chemistry in terms of stories. And I think it does better when I set chemistry in the language of chemistry.
As an example, like set for me a question, a chemistry question in the literature form.
Definitely, I'll do that. Like, I've told a story of a boy who was at school during the day, and they were taken to a chemistry laboratory. A Form 2 who was supposed to learn about metals, which in the chemistry we talk about group 1 metals. And under group 1 metals, we have very reactive metals. We have metals like potassium, we have metals like sodium, lithium, and these are very reactive metals. So this boy goes into the into the laboratory with the teacher. And instead of concentrating, he loses concentration because of the complex nature in which the chemistry is presented there. And then when there's a demonstration, he decides to steal a piece of potassium and puts it in his pocket. He's a day scholar in a public day school. And then in the evening, he's walking home, and by luck or by not very good luck, it starts to rain. And the whole village, those people are following, start seeing smoke coming out of his pocket. What has happened? The sodium, which is highly reactive, has reacted with the water from the rain. So it basically teaches him that, this is a typical real world story. There are metals you cannot steal. And there are metals you should never be rained on when you are carrying them in your pocket.
Like that. I wish my chemistry teacher was like that. I'd be a doctor at this point. Have you ever made a cringeworthy mistake in your writing, and you look at it, you're like, I just want the earth to swallow me?
I think I've done that quite a number of times, but the one that I remember is that I had a motivation to write an elegy to the late Kofi Annan. And when I did this piece, I got it like I do most of my pieces from an instant overnight inspiration. And then I felt it was sufficient at that moment. But this piece would later on attract a Zimbabwean publisher who was working with the young African poets of that time in 2018. And he picked it for that particular book.
Even before you didn't submit it, did you?
I didn't submit it. He just asked for it, and then I submitted it for the publication. Actually, it was published in Best New African Poets 2018. But later on, I would feel that it was insufficient in the volume, not in the expression of the feeling of the moment. I wish if I had another chance, I would have done it a little bit longer, because actually my style in poetry is actually long poems, but that was a little bit shorter than
you can say that when your most trending poem is this short. Also, I think, don't you, let me challenge you. Maybe you being a typical creative who never gets satisfied with their own work. There's always something you could tweak and turn and change and stretch.
I think that is a bit comforting because it is coming from you.
It
and
is.
I think you just maybe might have pointed out something that I've never known myself. And now maybe moving forward, I may use it as a consolation, but I'll be very keen. It is
as a consolation. It's not just a consolation, it's the truth. There's always something you could have done, you could have changed. Is there someone, an author, you really look up to?
No, I look up to quite a number of authors, but out of this list, I would pick out 3. Unfortunately, they are all not alive. In Africa, I have 2. Of course, my greatest inspiration in writing is Chinua Achebe, the father, I would say.
Absolutely.
The father of African literature. And then I would go all the way to Zimbabwe and meet Dambudzo Marachera, who is also quite an inspiration to me. And then I would get out of Africa and land in America or in the North America, and I would pick James Baldwin, who was really an inspiration to me. So the 3.
No Kenyan. What do you have to do? What do we need to do?
I think in Kenya, I think I was being a bit reserved, but I definitely like Ngugi wa Thiong'o. And I think I imagine him in Africa because I consider him more of a world writer.
That is true.
But when we come back home, I think Ngugi remains my greatest inspiration.
Okay.
And I think he's the one who actually inspired my writing, especially at the high school level, because I happened to do one of his books as a set book, that is The River in Between. And I think that is where I realized that I could have the power of writing, because at that moment I was more of science than literature.
Okay.
But that's my experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little about publishing.
Yes.
You've got, so to speak, 2 published books. One is an anthology, you know, like a collection. How many were you on this one?
We were 8.
8 of you. Yeah. And then there's this, a collection of beautiful, beautiful poetry.
Yeah.
This came first, right?
Yes.
This came first.
Yes.
Why did you decide? First of all, it's not poetry, and your thing is obviously poetry. It's a story. I read and I'm like, okay. Why did you go this way?
No, maybe just to make a little bit of correction of how I perceive myself. I think I am a failed poet and,
no
and an aspiring short story writer and also a novelist.
Okay.
So why did Broken Rhythm come first? Now, when I landed in Nairobi, I was introduced by Tom Miraria to
one of you here, yes.
who is one of the contributors to a Nairobi art cafe where we used to do weekly meetings and discuss purely literature.
Yeah.
Now, out of that association came the urge for us to tell stories, because we realized we were turning more into critics and not producers of art ourselves. So we challenged ourselves to come up with some pieces where we could write ourselves and put ourselves outside there as writers. So during COVID, actually, that is when we came up with the idea of telling some kind of stories around a particular theme. And that is how we came up with the short story genre, because we thought that it was quite a common characteristics of us, though not all of us were at that time identifying as short story writers, but it's something we could experiment on.
Was this your first shot at short stories?
I had done quite a number, but they were not published.
Okay.
They were contributed to various writing websites like the Kalahari and also the African Writers.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but I had never dared to do a story that I thought could be published.
So did this take away your fear of...
Yes, it actually...
Did this define you? Maybe that's the question I should be asking. Did it define you and you felt defined as an author?
Yes, I think it defined me because a short story for me was an inspiration. You realize that I'd been doing poetry for quite a number of time, and I didn't feel fulfilled enough in poetry, because I'd always been studying classical poetry, which was so strict in structure. Shakespeare's and all these classical poetry pieces. And I felt that to produce poetry good enough, I needed to do something extra. The songs that I was singing, the long prose that I was writing, at that moment in time were not really poetry to me. So I wanted to become a more refined poet. But then I discovered another bit about storytelling. So when Broken Rhythm happened, I felt that, yes, this is an inspiration. This is something I've always wanted to do. And here, it is coming out as the first thing I've ever done in published work. And I felt that was good enough. Yeah.
Did it sell? Are you guys making money? I don't want to know how much, but I'd like to know, like, if you did have another source of income, would you have survived on this?
I think we could have, because it really beat our expectation. Remember where we were rising from. We were writers with no name, apart from social media, where our profiles were
really
a little bit
big. Social media, it cannot be underestimated, actually.
Sure. But at that moment, we were looking up to mainstream publishers, people who do not need to have profiles
Yeah.
on the social media for
Yeah.
their works to sell.
Yeah.
Bookshops outside there would be calling their names. So for me, basically looking at it and the
Okay.
fact that today Ciku is holding Broken Rhythm.
Well, I enjoyed Broken Rhythm.
Yeah,
First,
sure.
I read it because I know Eric. Eric,
Yeah.
I've known him for quite some time. I've followed his work
yeah.
for some time. There's a time he also worked for a magazine I was editing. So
Yeah.
I knew him. So that was the reason. And then I discovered, it was good to see this because I don't think I'd have discovered you if I hadn't read this. And I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Tell us about Let the Old Man Speak.
Now, before I do that, I'll really have to
in a very short.
Sure, I really have to
so
give
what
it.
may okay, maybe I'll be more specific with the question.
Yes.
Poetry.
Yes.
Really good. And it's I kept feeling like actually I kept feeling like you captured the title very well. Because it was like listening. I kept imagining myself sitting and listening to somebody talking to me about life and about, all these things and, the changes and everything.
Yeah.
Was that the point?
Yeah, that was it. Actually, Let the Old Man Speak and Other Poems is a collection of poems I'd been writing almost from the time I started writing. And the inspiration behind them was my dad. He was a man of advanced age, and I was so close to him. And I thought that his voice was worth recollecting, because every time I wanted to write, I realized that I was always speaking in that old voice. And I was now writing at a time when old age, the wisdom of the old was almost losing its sense, because we have this youthy generation that is tech and all that. But I decided to just let the old man speak, typically, even in this time when only a few people are listening. And I'm glad people are listening to the old man's voice.
It's really well done. So congratulations.
Thank you.
What's cooking?
Now, I'm working on another personal collection of short stories. Yeah, the one that I've been writing, I think, for the last 3 years. And I believe that if 2023 is the best year, it should be able to come out.
Self-published?
Yes, I think I'd opt for self-publishing.
Why is that?
I think that is the path I've known. I tried the mainstream, really not that aggressively. But when I did Broken Rhythm, I thought that if it's done good enough, or with the right resources, you have the best of editors, publishers, and printers, it counts as a good book. And I think for as long as the story is outside there, it's the best I would want to do.
And you already have a head start, because I actually believe in this age, I spoke about the age of, social media and technology. Social media has come to play a very big role. It's like you need to first make your your presence felt on social media before you get into this. Doing it the other way can be a bit. Do you have something to tell? I know people ask about younger self. I want you to talk to your future self.
To my future self, I think there's only one message I have for him. That there's a story I'm waiting for. I still want to live and see how it ends. I want to tell that future self to remind me that I need to write that story before I quit.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Before you go, I want you to read a passage or two from Broken Rhythm.
Yes.
Yeah. I want to... Don't read too much, because it's a short story. You might finish the story for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'll read from the Broken Rhythm. This is a short story about an old man and a young boy who finds themselves in behind bars, and both of them are convicted with charges of rape. Now, this old man, Samu, is talking to the young man. And he talks about the day this young man got into the prison. And he tells him, yes, you are lucky I saved you on the first day.
Sorry, let me interrupt you. What page are you reading from?
That is page 113.
113, okay.
Yes.
I can just go pew. Okay. Aha.
Mm-hmm. Now, yes, you are lucky I saved you on your first day. You would be there with him right now. A woman when the nights are cold. There was no one to save me on my first day. I have felt what it means to be helpless. Have you ever wondered why they laugh when I rub my butt against the wall? Someone reflected deeply before asking a question he clearly did not want me to answer. You see, I shielded you from that, and you are soon living with completely different story. You may not even have learned anything at all. When I came in here for the first day, and those men asked me what crime I committed, I told them innocently. I felt they would laugh it out because someone raping his wife was ridiculous. But that very night, they attacked me and raped me. I wanted to fight, but they overpowered me. I felt bitter. I felt I was not a man anymore. You see, outside there, rapists do it and disappear. But every day, I have had to look at their faces each day for a decade now. Some have left me here. Free. Freed, Daudi. There's nothing I have not done to take my own life. Some who paused for a moment once more and looked at the roof.
Thank you. You have a taste of what is in here. Parting shots. You can say hi to people in Bondo or your students.
Now, my parting shot goes out there to a team of young writers with whom we've grown together and continue to grow. The Nairobi Book Cafe, headed by Tom Miraria. I would also not fail to mention Eric Rugara, a friend with whom we've had very deep conversations in literature and an inspiration for the future. And lastly, I think for the online team, those who have made my work known and those who continue to appreciate me in writing by buying my book and sharing my pieces and engaging in the conversations that I start, sometimes old as they are, I appreciate you, and I believe that next time I'm inspired to write, I will be telling your stories. Thank you, and let's walk together.
And thank you, Kaumah, for gracing us with your presence, and hopefully we shall have you on that bench soon.
Thank you, Ciku.
And all the best.
Nice. Thank you so much.
And that's the end of today's program. See you next time. Bye-bye.